What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to go over two things here. One is I'm going to sort of revise the video I did before on the skills that I use and how I use them in PvP and PvE and what each skill does against each class. And as a Force Master that really only uses Frost build, I'm going to show you what kind of gear you're going to want to use to help boost your Frost. Aside from the elemental accessories, because that's pretty obvious when you want to go which way you want with that. So we'll start off with the skills, because I want to go over it a little bit more on each skill and how each skill affects each different class during PvP. So as a Frost Force Master, when I go for a PvP build, like a general one, if I'm just going in open world and just running around and not really going class specific on which class I'm going to be fighting, my general sense is just to go with these ones here. So basically, Blazing Palm, the damage. The HP recovery I really find doesn't do that much, doesn't really give you that much HP back, so I really don't ever mess with that at all. Impact. Block, the block impact is the one you always want, and that'll go in line with your Frost. And I'll sort of cover that a little bit when I start going over some of these other skills here, but mainly you always want this for PvP. Basic skills is alright, but this is made for PvP, so just keep that on regardless, even if you don't have the Hung Moon ability like I don't have yet, but I will have it soon. This, I always go with Phantom Grip. I use Shadow Grasp for certain classes, and I'll go over that too. But when you're just doing, just open world and you don't know what class you're going to run into, I just generally go with Phantom Grip. Inferno, for PvP, go with Critical Hit. Never go with the 2.5 second cast time. Yes, the damage is like 3 times as more, and if you have the Hong Moon ability, you can cast it again instantly. So you can almost do like 100k. You can pretty much two-shot an enemy if you can get this off, but that 2-second wait time is not worth it. But with the instant cast, it does 5,000 versus up to 19,000. But if your opponent has some kind of status effect, whether it's stun, frozen, dazed, this will do additional damage. Plus it's instant cast, so it's pretty much a nice chunk of damage off the bat without sacrificing, having to stay static for 2.5 seconds, which really isn't worth it. With this one, I always have it on knockdown. Airborne, I don't really mess with that, so I always have this on knockdown, even during PvP and PvE, sorry. And for this one, I always use Frost Sheath. Every once in a while I use Frost Prison, and that all depends on if I'm trying to use Shadow Grasp to use Spirit Bomb. I'll sort of go over that later. It's a little strategy for some people that don't know how to fight Force Masters, but generally just keep Frost Sheath on here. For Frost Palm, for me, I always want to have Frost Palm for PvP. So it does 3,600 damage versus Frost Fury, its basic skill, which does 4,600, and it also attacks 3 times in a row in succession to each other versus this one. So this takes, you could probably shoot one of these off and hit a target maybe every 3 seconds, but every 1 second this fires 3 times, so you can do basically 3 times the amount of damage, but you have no status effect. This has a status effect, so when you hit a target 3 times with this, you'll freeze them. They'll be stuck to the ground, they can't move. That's when this skill comes in handy. If you use this skill while they're frozen, you'll knock your enemy back plus daze them, so that'll set you up for another combo. So use this 3 times on an enemy, get them stuck on the ground frozen, use this to knock them back, and then if you have Inferno ready, use Inferno, which will do that damage plus an additional damage for the status effect on the enemy as well. So that's sort of like a simple combo you can sort of try and get started. Use this, get them frozen to the ground, hit them with this, or if you want, get them frozen to the ground, use impact to push them away, stun them, keep using this. Keep trying to stack that frost on them. Do it again. There's different ways you can use this. So you always want this. You want when you're going for PvP, you normally want to go with the status effect versus just straight up damage, because if you can't keep your enemy nailed to the ground or controlled in some sort of way with a CC, you know, they're going to kick your ass. If you have your whole build in, you know, PvE, you're going to have no status effects. You're not going to have skills to counter some of their skills. So always try to go with the status effect. Now, Glacial Beam. There's Glacial Beam in Dragon World. I don't really mess with Dragon World at all. Glacial Beam I find is very good for PvP and PvE. I always have this on here, and this is pretty much what my Frost build is based around, is Glacial Beam and Cold Snap. Glacial Beam does, you can see there, the damage, 9 to 10,000. Reduces cooldown of skill used consecutively on enemies within the range of Cold Snap. So the more you use it, the more your Cold Snap cooldown goes down. It doesn't do it by a huge amount, but you'll notice it go down over time. Uses 2 focus, absorbs 5% of HP, which is good, so you're stealing health as well. Focus recovery on critical hit, which is nice. Recovers 12 Hung Moon energy. We don't have that yet. We don't have our ultimate skills yet, or however they want to call it when it comes here, so that you don't need to worry about it right now. Then you go down to Cold Snap. And these two here mixed together is what is your damage. This is your DPS right here. So use Cold Snap. And don't worry about the Trigger's Magnum effect, because that's my soul badge, and we're gonna go over that. So just for this point, pretend that the Trigger Magnum soul badge isn't even, that effect isn't even here right now on this little screen here, because most people don't have that yet. But what it does is it boosts the speed of Glacial Beam, because Glacial Beam it says instant cast, but it takes about a second and a half to use. It takes a little bit of time. It's not like it used to be when it was Ice Rain. Ice Rain used to go a lot faster, and the more you used Ice Rain, the quicker you could use it. It's not like that for Glacial Beam after they did the change. So it's a steady, like 1.5 seconds. But once you use Cold Snap, and Cold Snap's on the ground, if your target is within that AoE of Cold Snap, you can use this almost like 0.1 second. You'll just pound them with this. So this will boost the damage, or the speed increase. And what's great about this is it has, as you can see, a 3-meter area of effect, so it can hit more than one target. So if you're in PvP, like what I do when I go to, like, Soulstone planes, on my server, the blues outnumber the reds by a ridiculous amount. It's crazy. So most of the time I'm not fighting 1v1. This skill is awesome, because if I'm fighting more than one target, if both of those targets are within the Cold Snap range, and I'm using this, I'm going to hit both of them. And I hit without any of my accessories like my soul badge and my soul shield. Without it, I'm hitting 20k. So if you're doing 20k over and over, in quick succession speed, you'll wear both of them down at the same time. You're going to make the move. They're going to go running. They're going to split up. So you always want these two together. Ice Cool, it's all right. It slows down the movement speed, but I don't really use it because I don't really have my own strategy on how to use this effectively. I'm so used to this build here. And Frost Burst, I don't really mess with that neither. Frost Tornado. This is a really important skill for the spinners and for the block spammers. If you hit, let's say, your spinners, which are your blade dancers and your destroyers, if you hit them with this, as soon as they begin to spin, you'll cancel their effect on their spin. So they can't spin out of any CCs. You won't take any stuns if you hit them for a couple seconds, if you hit them with this at the right time. And if the destroyers have their shields up, you'll break their shield with this. This will also cancel Warlock's block, and it'll also cancel Blade Master's block. This will also cancel Kung Fu Master's counter, and it'll cancel the counter for the Soul Fighter too. So basically this is like a defense break. If someone's using some kind of block or spam type of block, it'll break it if you use it while they're using theirs. So you always want this on, because I mean, if you have just snowball on and you're fighting a blade master or a warlock, they're just going to spam block. You're fucked. You're going to have to try and knock them down, and then once they get back up, they're just going to spam it some more. So you'll always want this here, because this is a really handy skill. Escape, I always have this one on escape, backstep move 3. It's almost like a second tab. It'll get you out of everything other than being grabbed. So if someone uses force grip on you, or the destroyers grab you, any kind of move where they grab you, you can't escape with this. But other than that, this will let you out of all other CCs, other than for Frost Prison. But not a lot of Force Masters I see use that. So this is what you always want to use. Now when it comes to Frost Armor move 2, in open world PvP, I'll always have move 2 on here. It gives you the ability, once you use Frost Armor, when you release it, if there's any enemies near you, it'll freeze them, plus you'll step back a bunch of, I can't remember what it is here, it says on here, 15 meters, yeah, so you'll move back 15 meters, so it'll freeze your target, plus give you some room, it'll back you up, so that'll get you out of there quick. So this is something you always want here. I only use this one in PvP Arena, and that's because PvP Arena fights don't last too long, and this gives you a huge health increase, and it absorbs damage like crazy. So this will give you way more health than this, except you just don't get the 15 meter move back with this. So this is like just sort of like if you need some health. So I only use, like I said, during PvP. Now, when you're fighting enemies that have those block spam skills, such as, like I said, Blade Masters, Warlocks, or the Spinners, if you use this and it fails, you miss, you know, they moved out of the way, or you used it too late, your next trick is to try and knock them down and do some damage. So if a Blade Master or Warlock is spamming their block, and they're just sitting there at one spot and they're just using it over and over again, you're not even attacking them, but they're just using it because they know they're waiting for you to attack, so they just keep spamming it, throw this at them. Throw that down, knock them down, deal some damage, get back, try and play defensively until this can recover. Phantom Grip is another thing that helps with defense breaks. So if Blade Master or Warlock is using their block spam, if you use this while they're doing it, it cancels it. They can't use it for a few seconds. It's almost like using this. Actually, I don't even think they have to be using it. I think if you just get them, because I do this with Blade Masters a lot, I think if you just manage to grab them with this, it blocks their defensive skills for a few seconds. So use this on them, then deal your damage, play defensively for a while until this skill cools down, or this one, or unless this one's already ready to go. But what I like to do to set up a combo is I like to try and I'll either try and stun them with I can't remember what the name of it's called now because they changed it. It's your stun skill. It's not Glacial Beam anymore. They changed Glacial Beam to this, and I can't remember what the other skill is called. But it's you'll stun them some way, any way you can. Lay cold snap down, start dealing some damage with Glacial Beam. If they move out of the way, use Phantom Grip, pull them back into your AoE. So what you want to do is you want to kind of stay in the circle. Try and stay in this range, inside your cold snap circle. So if they do jump away, use this, pull them back into it, put them down, lay some more damage down. Once this is over, like I said, try and play defensively. This still deals a lot of damage by itself without cold snap, but you want to try and survive until you can get your cold snap back up and ready to go again, because this is your bread and butter for damage. Now, Shadow Grasp. The only time I really like to use Shadow Grasp is against the Spinners. So your Blade Dancers and your Destroyers. Because pretty much, if you don't hit them with Frost Tornado, their spin lets them out of all these different CCs. So Shadow Grasp, what Shadow Grasp does is it pulls them into the center 5 times. So they can't really spin out of it. Unless they have an approach skill that lets them launch from it to you, they're stuck in that hole until it's done. So what I like to do against the Spinners is I like to somehow, if I can even get them on here, I'll try and stun them, use Shadow Grasp and get behind them, so that way they can't move, and they're not facing you, so they can't use an approach skill, then I lay down Cold Snap and I start dealing some damage to them. So this is really, those two classes are really the only ones I really like to use Shadow Grasp on. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward with the rest of your skills. Just read them. Read what your status effects do. This may not work for everybody. This is my strategy. I've always used this type of strategy since before the big skill change. If you've seen any of my older videos, I used to use Ice Rain, and I had my whole build around Ice Rain. So this is very similar to Ice Rain. It just doesn't attack as fast without Cold Snap. So I've been playing this for pretty much since the Ice Rain build came out. So this is sort of what I have my whole focus on, was this Ice build. Yes, Fire build, there's a lot of arguments Fire build is better than the Ice build. What I find the difference between the Fire and Ice build is, so let's click over to Fire real quick. So a lot of the Fire builds build their thing around Blazing Beam. Now the difference between the DPS with Blazing Beam and the Glacial Beam build is, this is more of a sustained build. So when I used this before, I was hitting 40k with Blazing Beam, and when I was using Glacial Beam, I'm hitting around 36k, and that's with my Magnum Soul Badge. So the average was like 20, I think it's like 26,000 I hit versus 40,000. That may sound like a big difference, but the thing is, with Blazing Beam, as long as your target has a burn on them, you'll hit around 40. I hit around 40k with my AP and crit. But it's slower. You can't use Blazing Beam as fast as you can use Glacial Beam when you have Cold Snap down. So Blazing Beam is more of a sustain. You do a higher bit of damage over time versus Glacial Beam in the burst damage. So I mean, like I've used this on players, and I've killed them, in a couple hits. Let's say it takes about 10 seconds and they're dead with this, versus this and this, because this attacks so fast, you just mow them down. So I like the burst. So like I said, some people, it seems like the Fire build is more for PvE. But like I said, it's a single target. You can only hit a single target with Blazing Beam build. With this, you can hit multiple targets and it hits hard. So this is sort of why I like the Frost build. Now, for any Force Master that uses the Frost build, what you're going to want to do to gear for Frost build is, you're going to want at least 3 pieces of the Celestial Force Master Soul Shield. And what that does is, as you can see right there, is Glacial Beam damage increased by 10%. So there's a 10% boost to your Glacial Beam. On top of that, you want to get your hands on the Magnum Soul Badge. And what this does is triggers Magnum effect for 6 seconds and Frost boost effect for 15 seconds on a successful Cold Snap. So if you can hit an enemy with Cold Snap once, just once, you'll get a boost of 300 additional attack power on your Glacial Beam. So you'll be doing way more damage with this for the next 6 seconds. It's a nice burst. So I'm going to demonstrate the difference in damage between them without the 3-piece set and this, and then with the 3-piece set on and this. So let's take all this off. Take my Soul Badge off. And this is what my AP is right now. My AP is 870. So let's deal some damage to a single target first. Frost mode. So I'm hitting about 21,000. My average, let's say, is 21,000 for Glacial Beam. 22, but mostly I'm seeing 21. So we'll say it's about 21,000. So let's wait for my Cold Snap to go up, and then what we'll do is we'll add the 3-piece set. So let's see here. Add that. All right, so this will give me a 10%. It's not much. It doesn't sound like much, but it's something. So let's go for this again. Oh, one thing I like to do, actually I'll go over this later about how to sustain your focus while using Cold Snap and for Glacial Beam, but let's go now. So I was hitting 21,000, so now I'm hitting 26,000. So you can see that I got that little bit of boost, that 10% boost from just that 3-piece set. So I went from 21,000 to 26,000. So I'm hitting about 4,000 more just from the 3-piece set. It can be any set you want. I just put the critical, one of the higher criticals on there so you could see, you know, the average. I'll hit more crits so you can see what the average damage is. So the average is about 26,000. So like I said, I boosted it up by about 4,000 in damage. Now, when you add this guy, 300% attack power to your Glacial Beam for 6 seconds. So let's see what this does now. Look at that, 34, 35,000. So I'm hitting between 34 and 35,000. That's 10,000 more. That's 10,000 more damage on top of how fast I'm using. So you're adding, you know, maybe 100K more to your DPS. That's how important at least these two pieces are. Excluding the accessories that give you elemental damage. So now, when it comes to, let me put this back on real quick. When it comes to how I like to use this, and let me give you another demonstration actually. Let's go with, so I'll actually use the fire build real quick, and I'll show you the difference between burst and sustain. So you want that. Not really worried about Inferno because this is your bread and butter for damage in the fire build. Now, like I said, you have a cooldown for Cold Snap, so it's not, you can't keep the constant damage going because you have to rely on Cold Snap for your damage versus Glacial Beam. So I hit them with Glacial Beam. So I was hitting 25,000 without burn. Burn boosts the damage of Blazing Beam. So let's hit him with a burn. See, now I'm hitting 44,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage for not having to rely on, you know, Cold Snap. But look how long it takes for me to use it. I can hit them around every 1 to 1.5 seconds. But you have other methods, so you can hit them with Inferno. That should have been instant cast, so pretend that was instant cast. Now they're burnt again. So you have more methods to keep the DPS going. You know, hit them with that. Now they're burnt again. Or no, I don't have the right skill on for that. Sorry. But if you hit them with Impact when they have 5 flame orbs on them, you'll do the regular damage. So let's try and time this for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's about every second. Every second I can use that. And I'm hitting 40K, which is nice. It hits hard. I'll admit that for all the people that argue about the Frost build and the Fire build. It hit hard. It hits hard. It hurts. I've been hit by other Force Masters. It hurts. But now let's go with the burst damage. So let's see here. Let's go back to Frost. Basic skill for now, because we're just doing PvE. No, I want that. All right, so when I get ready to use this, I like to hit them with my C right here. Short fuse. That'll give me focus recovery for a little bit. So let's see the difference in damage now. Look. Versus that every 1 second. So look at that. 36, 36. I'm hitting like almost triple the amount of speed that Blazing Beam is doing. So you can see the damage that this would do if you're doing PvP. You'll burst them down a lot quicker with this than you would Blazing Beam, unless someone has shitty defense with Blazing Beam and then they're dead. But on top of that, the bonus to the Glacial Beam build is, like I said, I go to Soulstone Plains to do a lot of PvP, to troll, just to be an asshole sometimes when I'm bored. And like I said, we're outnumbered. So you're not always fighting 1v1. So one other skill or trick that I like to do is, I'll use Phantom Grip. Now let's say this is 3 enemies I'm fighting at once. You know, Blazing Beam targets 1 person. It does a lot of damage, but what happens when you're fighting more than one person? So what I like to do is, look, hit them with Shadow Grasp. They're stuck together by each other. Look at that. I'm hitting 3 of them for the same amount. There's no less amount of damage for hitting 3 targets. I'm just nailing it. Just look at the damage that this is doing. Now, if I was using Blazing Beam, I'd only be able to hit 1 of the 3 versus hitting all 3 at once and doing a hell of a lot more damage with that burst. Because when you're in PvP, you know, your average, the most you can have is what, about 160, 180k health. You're not fighting a boss that has millions, so you're not worried about the sustain. You're about bursting them down, ending that fight as quick as possible. And that's what Glacial Beam does. Just burst them down. Look, if that was 3 people, they'd be dead right away versus having only 1 of them dead from Blazing Beam. Now, yeah, they have ways to get out of that. They're not just going to sit there and stay in your Shadow Grasp hold, so they will escape. Some will jump out of there. It all depends on, you know, how quick they can react. They're not just going to sit there and take the damage like these dummies are. But you'll at least get a couple shots off on all 3 of them and do some kind of damage to 3 of them to wear them down. So that's sort of the difference between the Frost build and the Fire build, and why I like the Frost build better than the Fire build, and how I generally like to use the Frost build in PvP and PvE. So if you got any questions about it, maybe you've got a better argument, or you've got, you know, something you have to say about it, just leave them in the comments below. I'll be glad to answer any questions, or if you have your own ideas or disagreements, let me know in the comments. We'll talk about it. All right? Alrighty then. You guys have a good day.